Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Fantastic Four issue 30. And this was a nice conclusion to the whole King in Black tie-in that was going on with the Fantastic Four, and I really liked the job that they did with this. It started its whole kind of thing with like all of Null's stuff going on, and then of course us having Johnny, Sky, and Ben pretty much taken over by the Null forces, and the Fantastic Four kind of having to deal with that, while everything else was kind of like going on in the main event. And it just flowed naturally into the stuff that was going on. So we start off and we see that Yancey Street, the Fantastic Four's place, has pretty much become a place to like protect people from what's going on. But nullified people start like busting in, so Nikki and Joe decide to like take them on, and Alicia's like, "Kids, what are you doing?" And they're able to fend them off while Sue comes in, sees what's going on, and kind of blasts them out. She, of course, is worried that they're going back into their kind of soldier kind of habits, saying that they're like explorers and travelers mostly. But Joe brings up that they're clobbering time, clobblers, and she's like, "You leave that to your father," kind of stuff. And she's kind of worried about it. I'm like, I can understand to a certain degree, but there's a dark god invading Earth at this moment, using symbiotes to turn people into giant assholes, and having dragons and whatnot flying about. If there's a time to initiate fighting protocols, that's definitely one of them. Well, we see that Sue is pretty much like, all right, Ben's coming, but so's Johnny. That's kind of weird. And we see that Reed and Spidey have been like doing stuff to kind of take on Null's invasion, and they're like, oh, Spidey's like, yeah, Ben's been nullified, watch out for that shit. So Spidey holds down the fort there. Reed and Sue decide to pretty much fortify the defenses of Yancey Street because they know they're coming along a certain kind of way to come in the tunnels pretty much. We shift over, we see that the Forever Gate is under attack as well. Bentley, Franklin, and Val are pretty much being told to kind of like vacate the area by their parents and Dragon Man. They're like, we'll hold it here. But before they're able to do that, Val is taken over by and nullified, pretty much getting ready to try and like stop the Forever Gate because they were pretty much trying to hold it as like an escape avenue. Null, of course, would not want that. Bentley's like, don't make me do this. Gets kind of like taken out a little bit and starts pretty much expressing the darkest kind of like thoughts of Val, pretty much calling Franklin a big fat nothing and everything because he doesn't have any powers and is pretty much useless, even though he is able to grab the lightning gun that Bentley had and like zap her ass to kind of keep everything in check. We do see that Sky is attempting to try and control Dragon Man, but he is an android and is like, fuck you. And like, yeah. Well, then we get into the main event where we see Johnny and the Thing dealing with Reed and Sue as they pretty much start expressing their darkest desires. Johnny to Sue and Ben to Reed. And I really like the kind of fighting that was going on in here because they're trying to take them out as safely as possible, whereas Johnny and Ben don't kind of have that compunction. They're nullified, so they're going to be going as hard as possible. And of course, we see that Ben is doing the darkest thoughts of like Reed is mainly more focused on science and Ventrine and everything, and somebody's going to die because of that. Tying into what we'd seen with the whole Griever incident, Ben at some point, some event gets him to the point where he wants to kill Reed. Johnny brings up that since their parents left, Sue has pretty much been like his mother and calling her a failure for everything going on because Johnny's a failure and she has to always be on him. And I can understand that with that kind of relationship is like if you're the oldest kind of sibling, if something like that kind of occurs, you kind of feel like you have to look out for your younger sibling. And it can go into that kind of territory of becoming kind of like a pseudo parent. And it could essentially really chafe Johnny with what's been going on, and seeing him talk like that really isn't surprising. They, of course, are trying to gloat and everything, but Reed's able to pretty much like shock Ben on like some rails, and Sue's able to pretty much have Johnny being taken out by like a subway car. It's like, okay, they're able to get their defenses together, and they tell them that they're not welcome in, and they're like, we did what we needed to, we're out of here. And that's pretty much the end of it, because most of this stuff kind of gets wrapped up more in The King in Black. We then get a couple days later, and everybody's like trying to fix Yancey Street and all that. Ben and Reed, of course, go in. He's trying to apologize, and Reed's like, hey, we've been across multiple universes and everything. There's no realm where I wouldn't forgive you for what was going on, man. You're good. As they share their beer together. Let's see. We see that the kids are kind of back together. They're having kind of like a little family dinner and all that. Val's trying to apologize to Franklin, and Franklin's like, okay, if you let me shoot you with the lightning gun. Well, she puts forth the idea. It's like, hey, would it work any better if I let you shoot me with the lightning gun? And he's like, all right, let's kind of do that. Alicia pretty much is like, all right, I'll take over Joe and Nikki's schooling and teach them the art of art. And that's the only kind of thing. I mean, I'm like, okay, yeah, they do need other kind of things to teach them more about what's going on. It's just really weird of them to be like, Alicia to be like, oh, we got to teach them not to be soldiers. I'm like, I understand that if it was like they were going to school and picking fights and everything like that. In this scenario, it is another alien invasion that is technically like the third one. They even brought it up. Dark Harvest with like Empire. The Griever with her kind of like invasion kind of shit. And then Null. Yeah, that's pretty much a scenario where you're pretty much going to have to fight whether you want to or not. It's just really kind of weird, and it's like, but her teaching them about art really kind of works. It's like, all right, we got some downtime, let me teach you about art. Last kind of bit that we get into is that Skye and Johnny pretty much hash it out, being like, yeah, that was kind of an educational first date. She's like, yeah, I didn't think I'd be able to turn into a supervillain. I didn't know that like Dragon Man was like an android and shit. She's like, yeah. But she does come to terms with like, yeah, I put that soul binding on you without consent, and the thing is, we each have to take it off of each other. That's how they kind of work. Johnny, of course, is, hold on, let's think about this. He checks to see where Sue's at, and says that like he hasn't felt this complete before, and that he wants to continue to try and make this work, because what he was doing when he was going on the Fantastic Four's inaugural mission was to try and find her. And he, of course, flies off, and we see that Val goes in trying to find her mom, but sees that it's just her suit, and the trackers are in the suit, and that Sue was actually watching him, and that it's like part of being an older sibling. Is like, I'll always be looking after you, Johnny. He's like, all right, we'll kind of have to see how this kind of shakes out and what goes on in the next arc. So I enjoyed this one. It was a pretty organic kind of tie-in into King in Black, this kind of tie-in stuff that they did with Fantastic Four, and tied into the kind of stuff that we've already been doing. So I'm like, yeah, this worked out pretty well. I kind of like this little arc, and I can't wait to see kind of where they go from here. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.